There are many of us supporting Mr. Tan in this campaign who has known him personally. Many of us have seen his real side as a person. I'm one of them, and I've seen Mr. Tan, and I've known Mr. Tan for 9 years. He was my boss while I was heading up NTUC Income's Business Development Department. You would have heard many rumors about him, about his being a boss. You would have heard rumors about he having strong views. My question, what's wrong with strong views? Do you want a president who's got no views? Do you want a president who listens to other people's views? Or do you want a president who changes his views depending on which side the wind is blowing? Or do you want a president who is a smiling mouthpiece for someone else? I want a president who has firm views. And Mr. Tan Kin Lian will be the man who's got strong views, who can make that president. Tan Kin Lian. During this campaign period, it was Mr. Tan who came up with lots of ideas. Later, a lot of people borrowed his ideas. Do you remember who came up with the idea of giving away at least half his salary to charity? Mr. Tan Kin Lian. But do you know who borrowed his ideas? Do you know who came up with the idea of being a representative of the people? Mr. Tan Kin Lian. Do you know who copied his idea? Do you remember who came up with the idea of publishing the GIC's annual report after he becomes president? Mr. Tan Kin Lian. And do you know who copied his idea? All three candidates seem to be copying Mr. Tan. It is easy to be a copycat. It is easy to take someone else's idea and give a discounted price of $500,000. It takes courage to bring up original ideas. That is what makes Mr. Tan Kin Lian. He has the courage to represent you. He has the courage to be a voice. He has the courage to be your next president. You know, I read an interesting article, an analogy of the role of the president on the internet. The analogy says that the presidential role is a boat. Then they compare what the candidates would say if they were to talk about this boat. Dr. Tony Tan says, don't rock the boat. Dr. Tan Cheng Bok says, let's all sit in the boat and row. Mr. Tan Ji says, let's all row in the opposite direction. And Mr. Tan Kin Lian says, classic, let's change the boat. It's not even a boat. You laugh, but there's a disconnect. Are we actually being made to believe that we're sitting on a boat? Or are we sitting on a piece of wood? On one hand, you have an elected president by all Singaporeans who can only do a limited number of things. No doubt, these are important things. But on the other hand, he cannot represent the views of all the Singaporeans. Xiao Bo, do you really think that it's difficult to change the boat? Do you know who made this boat? Don't you think that boat can be changed, modified, or renewed? Don't you think it's about time to change the boat? We have 4 different candidates who are going into the election. 4 very capable men. Come 27th, when you go to the polls, your vote will change the life of one person. Have you ever wondered what happens to other 3 men who don't get elected? Let's all think together. Dr. Tony Tan, the government would lose the knowledge and skills of a very capable man. They would probably use his skills to steer us away from the dark clouds. They should, because he's excellent doing that. Dr. Tan Kin Lian, he's an excellent doctor. Should Singaporeans lose his service as excellent doctor? No. So he should continue to be an excellent doctor. Mr. Tanji say, I really hoped that he would have won the GE in 2011. He would have made an excellent parliamentarian. He would, over the years, make an excellent minister. And I think it's not fair for us to lose that excellent minister and make him a president. Especially when we have so limited number of ministers, because all the ministers seems to be holding 3 or 4 portfolios, and we have lost a few more. So where do you think Mr. Tan will go? He will go back to the place that he has been familiar with, the causes that he is comfortable with. He will be back at Hong Lim Park. He will go back and speak up for you. He will be back there to represent you. But he will face a difficult task because he would be nothing but an ordinary citizen fighting for your views. As an ordinary citizen, Mr. Tan Kin Lian did a lot of things that many institutions dare not do. He stood up against the system of mini-bond issues. He made a lot of sense. The institutions had to listen. As an ordinary citizen, he did all of this. Imagine what he can do when he becomes the President of Singapore. So by voting Mr. Tony Tan, you lose a great economic advisor. By voting Mr. Tan Cheng Bock, you lose an excellent doctor. By voting Mr. Tan CJ, you lose a wonderful parliamentarian. But by voting Mr. Tan Kin Lian, you get a people's president, a voice of the people. So your vote goes to Mr. Tan Kin Lian. Mr. Tan CJ Jise in his campaign rally yesterday shared how poor he was. He had come up from a difficult life to the current position he has obtained now through sheer hard work. He was poor, but he managed to get a scholarship that saw him through Oxford. I admire the man. He was poor and a smart man. But let me share with you what's poorer than poor. When you are the top second student of Raffles Institution, you give up your studies and you go to work because the family needs the money. You have a scholarship, but you still can't take up the scholarship because the family needs you to work at 16 years old. That is poorer than poor. And Mr. Tan was poorer than poor, and see where he is now. So do you want a smart man who's come from a humble background, who can relate to you to be a next president? Then vote Tan Kin Lian. Lastly, here's a man with a heart. And talking about heart, I was looking at the various symbols of all the other candidates, and the symbol of the heart was very nice, beautiful. But think about this. When you have it in the heart and you never express it, it is same as not feeling it, not having it. So, say I like a girl. I feel so much for her. I don't tell her. It doesn't mean anything. You need a person who can make the difference and say it. Say it out loud. Say it out as the voice of the people. He will voice it. Mr. Tan will voice it. He will talk about it. He'll say it. He will be our president. You will vote Tan Kin Lian. I will vote Tan Kin Lian. Lastly, your vote is secret. And let me tell you a secret. I will vote for Tan Kin Lian. Thank you.